It's a new filtration system, but it's got a great output. It's still going to take care of the cryptosporadia, the giardia, things that are going to make you sick and make your camping experience horrible.
If you haven't shopped for camping gear in a while, you might find it a little disorienting. It seems that your standard bratwurst and army surplus tent got replaced by biodegradable toilet paper and organic spinach puttanesca.
And now you've got light wherever you're looking.
Gear previously used by miners and skiers has apparently seeped into the camping gear arsenal.
Trekking poles have come such a long way.
Believe it or not, the proliferation of the automobile is what got America to forsake the comforts of home and start camping out in the early part of the last century. Today, 47 million Americans head for the hills trying to capture an older way of life.
My favorite camping gadget is probably my laptop. I like to watch the Blair Witch Project in the dark.
Or are they? We examine different kinds of camping and the Great American Campout as an institution in this episode of Wyoming Folks.
The culture at the time was a more open range and then pretty wide range even after it got settled. And the herder would follow the sheep. And a band of sheep just kind of moves along, usually between water spots and grazes, and you had to have a place for the herder to live.
Before people started camping for fun, they were doing it out of necessity. For many Wyoming folks, home on the range came in the form of a tiny 6 by 11 foot house on wheels. Braving freezing temperatures and horrible weather in the middle of nowhere, sheep herding is probably one of Wyoming's first forms of extreme camping. We talk with veteran sheep herders about living on the range, as well as Wyoming governor and sheep wagon aficionado Dave Friedenthal.
And so technically we call them sheep wagons, but really they are the sheep herder's wagon. Because you don't haul sheep in them. This is where the sheep herder lived.
I remember, it's been almost 42 years, 2 o'clock in the afternoon. I land in Sheridan, Wyoming.
Many residents of Wyoming sheep camps came from the Basque region in southern Europe.
We flew Paris to Colorado, Colorado to Sheridan. It was, 7 o'clock at night. I do my name on my chest, you know. We go in the store, I buy all of my clothes, my bed, everything I need for sheep herder. After we go in the mountains.
Life in a sheep wagon is a study of cramped quarters.
One of the interesting things about sheep wagons is they're all just a little different in that either the drawer configuration or the bed configuration, different number of bows in the structure. So there's no assurance of anything other than the fact that it's going to have a stove for people to cook, lots of storage, and a relatively small sleeping area.
What was the most difficult thing?
Winter time. I don't like it in the winter. It was too cold in the wind. It was terrible. And sometimes come down to 35, 40 below zero, you know, I tell you. I was living in a little cookhouse, you know. And I tell you, it was so cold, you know, sometimes in the morning everything was frost.
Now these things aren't terribly well insulated, so they would get cold, but these stoves are huge in most of them. And one of the things that's clear is that when you heat this stove up, it will blow you out of here. It's just more heat than you can use. An awful lot of time, particularly in the summers, it was so hot people would try to avoid turning on the stove or heating it up. It's a cast iron stove, and when it gets hot, it stays hot. So an awful lot of time they'd cook outside. I've not gotten in so much trouble with Nancy yet that I've had to come out and sleep in this one since we've been here. But it could happen, so we've made sure that the bed is comfortable.
The whole point of any house on wheels, be it a sheep camp or an Airstream, is that you can have the comforts of home almost anywhere. In the case of sheep herders, anywhere was often very far away from anyone else.
Oh, it's kind of hard because you don't have nobody around. But then we have the radio, listen to the radio night.
What would you like to listen to?
Oh, we used to listen sometimes from one station from Mexico because they speak Spanish.
Yeah.
And I kind of enjoy their music and stuff like that. And they, from London, they give news and all that stuff.
The hardest part, it wasn't the work. The work is easy work. I mean, it's no work. It's the loneliness. I mean, you by yourself over there, nobody. The rancher come and see you maybe twice a week, or maybe sometimes once a week.
Yeah.
I never write so many letters. I used to write probably twice a week or 3 times a week a letter home. You know, I had one time my boss told me, Tony, how come you write so many letters? Letters. I said, well, I ain't nothing else to do.
And it's dark once you get away from the fire. And
sometimes it can get a little creepy in the mountains.
Let's face it, there's a lot of things, animals and things going on out in the woods, so you hear these unusual noises. And
I started to hear something move around my tent.
I think it just kind of makes your mind start to race a little bit.
I started yelling at it, trying to scare it off, and it just kept going.
Every tree looks like an animal, every rock looks like something else. It can be a little creepy.
Anyone who's gone camping has seen or heard something in the night they couldn't quite figure out. Ghost stories and other campfire legends have become an essential part of the camping experience. We visited the Wyoming State Archives in an attempt to find Wyoming's scariest ghost story. Without further ado, we bring you Wyoming's Ship of Death, first published in 1948 in the first issue of Fate magazine. The first sighting of Wyoming's mysterious Ship of Death occurred of all places on the Platte River in 1862.
Glancing up the stream, I noticed what appeared to be a gigantic ball of fog riding on the surface of the water. As the huge ball of mist came nearer, I picked up a stone the size of an egg, which I hurled at the floating mass. As the stone left my hand, the balloon-shaped cloud assumed the shape of a sailing vessel of an ancient type. Men in the dress of sailors appeared upon the deck, standing in a circle of close formation. After a few moments, the sailors on my side stepped aside, revealing a large square of canvas spread upon the deck, upon which lay a corpse of a young and beautiful girl, and I recognized the corpse as that of Margaret Stanley, my best girlfriend. At the sound of my voice, ship and sailors instantly vanished from view. A month later, I visited the Stanley home and was told of Margaret's death, which took place the same afternoon.
While gazing out upon the swiftly running river, I saw something that set my nerves a-tingle. Near the middle of the stream was a full-rigged sailing vessel. I saw 9 men on board who appeared to be sailors. The man whom I took to be captain of the strange vessel stood with his arms folded, staring toward the bow of the ship, giving orders to his men without turning his head. At the captain's command, a square of canvas was lowered to the deck. As the sheet came to rest upon the deck, one of the sailors stepped forward, and grasping a corner of the sheet, drew it aside, disclosing the face of the woman who seemed to be terribly burned. In spite of the frightfully scarred face, I recognized my wife. Overcome with terror, I screamed and covered my eyes. When I looked again, the ship had vanished. After a few moments, I rose and mounted my horse, and with all speed returned home to relate to my wife what I had seen. Topping a hill, a quarter of a mile west of my house, my heart stopped beating, my blood froze in my veins. There, in full view, I discovered my home in ashes. Spurring my horse to run, I was soon beside the smoldering embers, frantically calling to my wife.
The last report of the Ship of Death was made in 1903 by Victor Hybe, soon after he testified on behalf of his friend, convicted murderer Tom Horn.
On the forward deck, just to the rear of the captain who faced the bow of the craft, stood a gallows of the L type, from whose cross-arm was suspended the body of a man they had hanged. As the body swayed to and fro from the rocking of the ship, it turned so that I gazed directly into the face. It was the blackened face of my dearest friend, he whom I had defended with my testimony in the court at Cheyenne only a few months previously.
Tom Horn was hanged the same afternoon that Hybe saw the apparition. To finish up our Campfire Stories segment, we share one more scary story, this time about a legendary creature spotted right in our own backyard.
The Idaho Falls Post-Register, Wednesday, June 18, 1980. 2 men reported seeing a Bigfoot-like creature on Snow King Mountain near Jackson, Wyoming. Robert Goodrich and Glenn Towner, no hometown or ages listed, reported to police that they were chased off Snow King Mountain by a Bigfoot-like creature, 12 feet tall with long dark hair and arms, which hung almost to the ground. The 2 men said they were going to visit a friend who had built a lean-to on the mountain when they encountered the creature. The men told police the creature breathed heavily and made a moaning growl-type noise. They described the creature as having a simian-like face as big as a stop sign, and the creature was hunchbacked, the spokesman said. Goodrich and Towner told the police that they ran when they spotted the creature and that it followed them. The last time they saw the creature, it was standing under a street light near the Ramada Snow King Inn in Jackson. The two men said they were going back Tuesday to take pictures of any possible tracks and to see if they could find their friend. The police reported that the two men had not been drinking.
The following segment demonstrates outdoor skills, which should not be attempted without expert supervision. No one should go into any wilderness area without proper training and equipment.
Back home, we used to dress up for Halloween, go trick-or-treating like everybody else. I thought I'd be smart and take a shortcut through the woods and got myself lost. It was a rainy night. There was a full moon, but it was hidden behind clouds, so I couldn't see anything. So I ended up spending the night underneath a rotten log. I was probably about 12 years old, freaked the heck out of my parents, made quite an impression on me.
Every year, people go camping who never wanted to. We don't mean these folks. We mean these folks. The kind of camping that makes headlines about people surviving for weeks by eating bugs and drinking.
Well, yes, you can drink your own urine. It's sterile.
People who never thought they'd end up stranded or lost in some of the world's more desolate places.
Yeah,
we follow Air Force helicopter pilot Jeremy Mac McPherson on an excursion to Kurt Gowdy State Park to learn how to survive when things go really bad. Along for the adventures are summer interns Anna Rader and Kathleen Warner.
Other than fishing and maybe hiking, I'm really not an outdoorsy person and I don't like bugs.
Primary focus of like survival in the wilderness is maintaining 98.6, which is, core body temperature of a normal human. So everything you do should be to preserve that 98.6. You got those three basic needs: shelter, food, water. Not in any particular order. Sometimes one's more important than the other. It just depends on the kind of environment you're in.
Your hunt for the bare necessities might not have to go on for too long if you're able to get rescued first.
Signal mirror. You can get these in most stores too, with all the camping stuff. These things work great. You can signal up in ideal conditions. I think the number was like 100 miles or something crazy. I personally seen these in the middle of the day, super bright from miles away, like at least 20 miles away. So they work really good. You'll use this part of your hand as like a sight gauge. So let's say you hear or see an aircraft or something. You just put that aircraft right there and then just flash this back. Just work it up your arm. Yeah, perfect.
One of the more interesting night signaling devices Mac shows us involves one of those cool glow sticks.
You take a piece of parachute cord, tie it to the end of this, and swing it around. They call it a buzzsaw because that's what it sounds like. But from the air, speaking from experience as a helicopter pilot, you can see that for a ways if the person's doing it right. These solar blanket things, you can get them at like Target for like $1. These things are awesome. Some water purification stuff. I usually carry a bunch of power bars because these things are really calorie dense. They taste horrible, but I mean that's enough food for me for probably the next. I could live on this for a month if I had to. On most animals, if you pull out the head, like small insects like this, you'll pull out the intestinal tract too, which is a good thing because you don't want to eat what they just ate. You guys want to eat it? It's just a caterpillar. No, you sure?
Alright, I'm not hungry. I'm not hungry right now. Alright,
If you're really starving, this would be a decent little meal. Oh,
apparently, the caterpillar is doing what it takes to survive too.
As far as berries go, stick to what you know. So readily and easily identifiable stuff. Weirdest thing I've ever eaten, like wild strawberries, blackberries. Rattlesnake was pretty weird. Delicious, but pretty strange. I'd never eaten a snake before. Any trees that secrete like large amounts of sap, like most of your pine, you can chew on the sap like it's gum. Squirrel's kind of bizarre, just because not many people other than, some mountain folk eat squirrels. Like little simple flowers, just eat the top. It tastes kind of just like salad or roughage. Because wild game usually doesn't taste all that great.
Because it was a plant, I was more willing to have it. I kind of was like one of those things where it's like, I can mark it on my list of what to do before I die. I ate a flower and tasted like spinach.
Yeah.
How do you eat an eyeball? Just pop it in. Tastes like tears. The best pine needles to eat are like off of Douglas fir. I would say probably the nastiest thing I ever ate was a beetle that I ate that tasted, I was told it would taste like peanut butter. but it actually tasted like hot sauce and vomit.
Yeah, it doesn't taste bad.
And he pinched the heck out of my tongue, so it was kind of hard to get him down. So,
oh, come on. All right, so ant, you see he's little tiny. You gotta eat a whole bunch of these things to get a lot of protein. But since we only found one, there he goes. It tastes just like lemon drop. They kind of have like a citrus taste to them.
We are unable to find a water source, and it brings up a question we're just dying to ask.
So yes, you can drink your own urine. It's sterile, but you're just drinking back the same, minerals and other waste deposits that your body was trying to get rid of in the first place. So chances are it's not going to hydrate you as much as you think, even though it's wet and it's fluid. And it just doesn't really help you. It's better to find a fresh source of water. Even if you can't purify it, it's better to find a source of water than drink your own urine, in my opinion. There's, a million different opinions on that, but I'm not going to do it.
Yeah, I'll go with yours. That's okay.
Favorite of shelter is just the hasty, where basically I'll find myself like a kind of a dark little hole, like right in here. I'll maybe beef up the top part right here with something that's relatively waterproof, like a solar blanket or something. Try to get rid of anything that has thorns or thistles or anything that's going to be uncomfortable. I'll try and grab a bunch of this other green stuff and stuff it down underneath there to make it comfortable, kind of like a mattress, and then I'll just curl up in there.
Before returning to civilization, Mac teaches us one of the most important survival skills.
Fire is huge depending on where you're at.
We're going to build our fire using one of the oldest techniques and fuel it with one of the grossest.
Same thing. So once you get a fire started and you go into the fuel stage, cow patties work great. Sometimes it doesn't smell all that great, especially if there's a little bit of wet on the inside. But
the hardest part of building a fire with a flint and striker is getting the sparks to ignite a flame. In this case, our hero has come up with a homemade solution.
I always carry a little bit of homemade tinder. This is just cotton balls and Vaseline. This is the best tinder I've found out of all the millions that I've tried. And even if you don't have this, you can still use this principle by taking a little piece of your shirt or something like that, wiping it in some grease or any kind of oil that you find naturally, and it's the same principle. So cotton balls and Vaseline, I think, works great.
It gives you the ability to cook your food, to boil your water, purify your water if you don't have things like iodine or those purifiers or filters. It also serves as a huge morale boost. It gives you protection against certain kinds of dangerous animals depending on where you're at in the world, and it gives you heat and warmth and just a good sense of comfort, whether that's actual physical warmth or if you're in the jungle. I mean, it gives you like a sense of light at the end of the tunnel when you're enclosed in this really dense canopy jungle.
I remember on a scout camp one time we went, out of the city and went up into the mountains, and because there was no light pollution and it was a clear night, we looked up and all the whole sky was just lit up with stars.
Probably all of my best memories with my brothers and my dad are of us camping in the mountains.
I don't know, it's just fun. It's always fun to grill out and sit around a fire and just hang out with your friends.
In our final segment, we examine the Great American Campout as an institution, asking people about their camping memories as we follow a family into the woods.
I've camped at Devil's Tower a couple times.
When I was growing up, we went in the Bighorn Mountains primarily.
For this campout, we're headed to Sinks Canyon State Park near Lander, Wyoming. What makes this place so unique is that the Poposia River runs right through it and then disappears into a mountain.
Water travels underground for about a quarter mile and reappears in a placid pool called the Rise. Well, I think the mystery is what's happening for those 2